Hello, how's it going? I'm back, I guess. In today's video, we'll be looking at Ravages of the Plague, the Shadow Path, and the Culling of Stratholme from Chronicle Volume 3. So let's go! King Terenas had reached a point where he could no longer ignore the plague. He knew the Kirin Tor was sending Jaina Proudmoore to investigate the disease, and he decided it would be nice and smart if he sent some folks to aid her. So he dispatched envoys led by his son, Arthas. They'd accompany Jaina and search for the plague's source, and maybe even stop it from spreading, which would be super awesome cool. Despite the grim circumstances, Arthas and Jaina were pretty excited about spending some time together. There were still some feelings. They still liked the cut of each other's jib. When the group arrived at the Plaguelands, they were a little bit shocked. It was like stepping into another world. The region was no longer peaceful. A shadow had crept over the land. Arthas was a little bit upset by this. These were his people, and it was his responsibility to protect them. He vowed to do whatever he could to save them. But pretty much from the outset, Arthas was a little bit useless. When faced with plague-stricken victims, his holy light was ineffective, and for most of them, all he could do was offer words of reassurance that he'd end the plague so no one else would suffer. As time passed, Arthas and Jaina would gradually unravel one mystery after another, and generally felt more and more unsettled as they did. The plague was being transmitted through grain shipments from Underhall. Gasp! The plague didn't kill its victims, it made them zombies. You what, mate? Discovering that humans were behind the plague really kinda rustled Arthas's jimmies. He channeled his fury into the quest to hunt down kel'thuzad and his cult of the damned, and make them pay for the innocent lives they'd destroyed. Meanwhile, through the eyes of his Scourge minions, the Lich King watched Arthas, and he thought, this guy's a natural leader. Charismatic, confident, he's a gifted fighter and tactician. I like him. I think maybe he fancied him a little bit. The demons crafted a plan based on the Lich King's advice and commanded kel'thuzad to face Arthas in battle. Kel'thuzad would need to tell Arthas that he was merely a servant to a dreadlord named Mal'Ganis, who lurked in Stratholme. Kel'thuzad would also need to give his life in the process. Only with him dead would Arthas then turn his focus to the dreadlord. And Kel'thuzad was like, great, love that plan. Stratholme was chosen specifically. It was heavily populated and the region's most important city. It was also a holy site, the birthplace of the Paladin Order. If it fell to the plague, it would be disastrous for Lordaeron. So Arthas arrived in Underhall, and Kel'thuzad performed his duty. Arthas unleashed his fury and crushed the life out of the Necromancer. He then set out to save Stratholme, even more desperate and unhinged than before. As the days passed, Jaina noticed a change in Arthas. He was filled with hate. He pushed Jaina and his soldiers to the breaking point, forcing them onward and giving them little time to rest. She was as determined as him to put a stop to the plague, but she was a little bit worried about the toll this quest was taking on his psyche. She urged him to show restraint, but he was like, shut your face. He wouldn't rest until his people were safe. On the way to Stratholme, the group were joined by a person who may be able to talk some sense into the young prince. Uther, the Lightbringer. When Uther arrived, he did sense something was amiss with Arthas, but he believed that he'd probably come to his senses eventually, so he wasn't that concerned. But he soon realised he was bloody wrong. They arrived at Stratholme. The citizens were already tainted. Their fate was sealed, and it was only a matter of time before they succumbed to the plague. Arthas believed there was only one way to proceed. He ordered his followers to purge the city. For him, this was as much an act of mercy as it was a strategic decision. Some of Arthas's allies obeyed his order, but many did not. Uther and his paladins were disgusted by the idea of killing innocents. They would take no part in this, and Arthas was like, that's treason, you bloody jerks. Arthas called on Jaina to join him, but she also refused. Along with Uther and the paladins, they left. Those that remained joined Arthas, and the killing commenced. Fire engulfed the city and screams cut through the air. The blood of innocents ran thick along the cobblestones. Bit of imagery there. Lovely. Amid the carnage, the prince found Mal'Ganis. The dreadlord was pretty eager to kill this human, but that wasn't part of the plan. He issued a challenge to Arthas. Come to Northrend and face me in a true battle. And then he vanished. And Arthas was like, right, well, guess I better go to Northrend then. He now believed that if he could vanquish Mal'Ganis, the plague would end. So he wasted no time, took his followers, and set sail for the frozen continent. A few days passed and Jaina and Uther returned to Stratholme. The city was burned to a husk and bodies lined the streets. Jaina felt extremely guilty for not doing more to intervene. She could have used magic to restrain Arthas, or something, but chose not to. And as a result, he committed an act that would haunt him for the rest of his life. This would weigh heavily on Jaina for many years. Jaina and Uther went their separate ways. Uther went to Lordaeron to inform the king of what his son had done. Jaina went to Dalaran to report her findings to Antonidas. Neither of them knew that the next time they encountered Arthas, he'd be ever so slightly different. And we're leaving it there! That was bloody brilliant. I know I say it a lot, but this part of the overall Warcraft lore is just amazing, in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, you could press the like button. Also, you could subscribe if you want. And all that's left to say is, thanks very much for watching, and see ya!